Anyone here familiar with the game One Night Ultimate Werewolf? I'm so glad the Stees family's here. We got one more. Anybody? Oh, we got a few back here. Yes. No one at the first service had heard of it. I was hoping you'd be here, Brandon, because I knew your hand would be up. So this is a family favorite game for years, but lately our kids have really been into playing it, and so many nights over the past month or so, I have found myself sitting in a circle in the living room with a card in front of me. And that card tells me what character I am for that round of the game. I might be a villager, or a mason, or a robber, or a seer, and they all have their own roles to play. But I may also be a werewolf. And if I'm a werewolf, the object of the game is to convince everyone that I am not the werewolf, which obviously involves a lot of lying. I have to pretend I'm somebody else. And if someone else is the werewolf, then I'm trying to figure out who it is. Who is telling the truth and who is leading us astray? And it can be kind of disturbing at the end of the game when we reveal who we really are to find out, someone we know and love is really pretty good at being deceptive and lying to us all. But that's the game, right? And there are a lot of other games out there, too, that are predicated on that premise. It's fun to try to figure out what is true and who's telling the truth when you're playing a game. It gets a little trickier when you put the cards back in the box, put it on the shelf, and you're back in real life. And you're trying to figure out whether someone else is telling you the truth or not. Whether it's someone that you're in a personal relationship with and they're being honest with you really only affects the two of you, or if it's something a lot bigger, like really what is Russia doing right now? We know that figuring out the truth matters. The sad story of Alex Jones and his conspiracy peddling reality-denying InfoWars back in the news this week shows the significant amount of pain and suffering that a willful rejection of the truth can cause other people. And while we as human beings have probably never been great at sharing or sussing out the truth, it certainly does feel like the past 5 or 10 years have been highlighted by a real crisis of truth. The easy access that people have to widely sharing information and misinformation, the undermining of news and proliferation of fake news, the rise of truthiness, they all make it understandable that we tend to be skeptical of anyone's claim to know the truth. After all, what is truth? Several thousand years after Pilate asked that question, we as a people, a culture, a world, don't seem to be any closer to understanding truth. So, is there truth to be found in Jesus' trial scene this day? It's early in the morning. We read daybreak, just after the cock crow that signaled Peter's third denial. And as the day breaks, we see light is appearing even when all seems darkest. Jesus, having already been questioned by the high priest, is taken to Pilate, the Roman governor. Now, typically, for most of the year, Pilate would be home enjoying his lovely residence in Caesarea Maritima, beautiful town on the coast of the Mediterranean. But Passover was approaching. In fact, it would begin in just a few hours. And Jewish folks were gathering to celebrate not just the story of their people being set free from death, but also from being set free from oppressors, those in Egypt, and now maybe perhaps even those in Rome as well. There was political tension and a higher than average likelihood for an uprising against the Romans during the Passover. So it was a good time for Pilate to show up and show off Roman power and presence in the city. The Jewish authorities, meanwhile, have decided that Jesus has too much power. With the raising of Lazarus, he has shown himself to have power even over death. And the authorities find that to be threatening to them and their authority, but also, and perhaps more importantly, they fear that as Jesus' popularity grows, it will catch the attention of Pilate and the other Roman officials. And Rome might feel the need to exert their military power over all the people. So they're scared, and they just want to get rid of Jesus. So they take him to Pilate, who was probably not thrilled to be bothered so early in the morning with this issue that he really felt like the Jewish leaders probably could have handled on their own. He asks them a reasonable question. What is your accusation against this man? And notice how fear, as so often is the case, fear blocks the truth here. The religious authorities give this ridiculous non-answer. If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you. They don't want to take any responsibility. Imagine if a teacher sends a kid to the principal's office and the principal says, "Okay, teacher, why did you send this kid here?" And the teacher's like, "Well, I wouldn't have sent him if he hadn't done something wrong." That's ridiculous, right? But that's exactly what these religious authorities, when life and death is on the line, that's what they say. Well, if you figure it out, we promise something bad happened. So they don't want to take responsibility. They do, however, want him crucified, specifically crucified. And for that to happen, it has to be Rome who does it. They don't have the authority to crucify people. So they pass the buck completely to Pilate. So Pilate goes into Jesus, begins to ask him questions, because he's trying to figure out who this guy is and who he claims to be. "Are you a king?" Pilate asks. Because if this Jesus guy is trying to claim political authority, well then, yeah, he's in the right place, and Pilate would need to deal with that. But it's clear right from the start of this exchange that Pilate and Jesus have very different definitions of king and kingdom here. All that Pilate knows in terms of what it means to be king or any kind of leader or ruler at all is the power that uses violence and force to get what it wants. That's the kind of king that Pilate is looking for. And Jesus is talking about a very different kind of authority, that which looks like a shepherd that will lay down his life for his sheep. Pilate's power is through military might and human institutions. Jesus' power comes from God. Caesar runs a kingdom that's in the business of death. Jesus rules a kingdom that's in the business of life. And so here we see the cross becomes an indictment of power that destroys and kills and oppresses, that seeks for its own gain. While Jesus is about love, abundant love, extravagant love, too much love. And Jesus is here to testify to that truth. We go back to where we started on Ash Wednesday with Jesus, the Good Shepherd, and the sheep listening to his voice. He says to Pilate, "Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." To which Pilate responds, "What is truth?" Because the only kind of truth he knows is that which Rome creates. The propaganda machine, right? When you're in power, you say what you need to say to maintain that power. That's the only truth Pilate knows. What Pilate can't see or hear or comprehend is that truth is the one standing on trial before him. Truth isn't that which we mold and shape for our own use. Truth isn't even the summation of all the facts that we know. Truth isn't doctrine or dogma, and the proper question isn't even what is truth, it's who is truth. Because truth is Jesus. Jesus, who embodies self-giving love that leads to life. At this point, it might be helpful for us to kind of zoom back a bit and remember what the Gospel of John has to say about truth. So the word truth, which occurs once in Matthew and 3 times each in Mark and Luke, that word truth appears 25 times in John. The light is coming into the world full of grace and truth. And grace and truth come into the world through him. People doing the truth come to the light, and everyone who belongs to the truth recognizes the shepherd and listens to his voice. True worshipers worship in spirit and truth. Those who continue in the word of Jesus are freed by the truth, sanctified in truth, and sent into the world with the spirit of truth dwelling in them. And then again, the word for true, the adjective, which appears once in the other Gospels, appears 23 times in John. God is true. The testimony of Jesus and of the disciple whom he loves is true. Jesus is true light, true bread, true vine. His flesh is true food, and his blood true drink. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is truth. It's about relationship. It's about walking with Jesus. Knowing Jesus is knowing truth. And so the question for us becomes, what truth are we following? What truth are we holding on to? We see that the religious authorities as well choose the truth that they know and understand, that power comes through force. They choose Barabbas, a political insurrectionist who's likely to be using violence against the government. Faced with the opportunity to free truth, they choose force, the truth that they know. Now, knowing Jesus, walking in Jesus' way, following the truth, that obviously doesn't answer all our questions and solve all our problems, right? We still don't always know who the werewolves are, either in the game or in our real life. But we can know that as we follow in Jesus' way, that searching for truth, speaking for truth, still matters. Not so we can use truth as some sort of bludgeon to attack another person. I know the truth and you don't, right? Not like that at all. But so that we can be in authentic relationship and continue to invite others into that kind of authentic relationship characterized by the self-giving love of Jesus. We can trust the promise that following in the way of self-giving love will lead to life. not violence, not force, self-giving love. The love that is embodied by Jesus, that we are called to live out through ourselves. May we live and walk and delight in truth. Amen.